Well, let's talk about some of the economic difficulties that the country is going through that you mentioned. The subprime mortgage crisis, for example. Already the president and Congress have agreed on this rebate package. Next month, $168 billion will be returned to the citizens of the United States in order to deal with the economic crisis spurred by the subprime crisis. Do you think that was a good idea?
The federal government has this huge deficit, so the government doesn't have the money to give it back. It has to borrow, in effect, the money to do so. What is best for the economy, and I've been saying this for a long time, the evidence is overwhelming, going back hundreds, literally thousands of years, is if you reduce marginal tax rates, that will spur savings and investment and a better economy. That's clear from the evidence. What we need is to downsize the federal government. That's the problem. The government is spending too much. And here's the key point. The Federal Reserve has been manipulating interest rates since it got started in 1913. Actually, 1914. The bill was passed in 1913. What that does is to destabilize the economy by giving us these speculative bubbles.
It creates booms, and then which lead to busts.
My dissertation was on this at Rutgers University, talking about inflation, how it affects the local economies all over the country.
So every time Ben Bernanke makes a pronouncement on behalf of the Fed and interest rates change, that's a bad thing?
Absolutely. In a free economy, in a free market economy, interest rates would be relatively stable because inflation would not be an issue. So rates would be roughly 3%, 4%.
So you're saying, what you're talking about is the gold standard. We should go back to the gold standard.
Well, the gold standard over time, if you look at the United States gold standard, the classical gold standard we had from 1815 to 1933, prices were relatively stable.
Well, it's not too complicated. Basically, the dollar would be pegged on gold, and whatever gold is, that's the money. And there's no feds to say, okay, we're going to reduce the rates, we're going to increase the rates, or anything like that. But without the ability to do that, if the feds, for example, didn't have the ability to do that, you know, we could be in a recession, in a deep depression.
No, that's not true. See, this is the mythology of so-called Keynesian economics,
why don't you tell people who Keynes was?
John
Keynes
was the probably most influential economist of the 20th century, who said government's got to spend during recessions, and it's got to not spend so much money during booms, so to stabilize the economy.
Keynes was wrong?
Yeah, he was absolutely wrong. There's a
but
wonderful
that's not
book.
what the feds are doing. The feds aren't spending. They're just saying, okay, we're going to reduce interest so that people can get money.
Trying to free up money, right?
They can buy things so that we don't fall into recession.
What the Fed does, without getting too technical, because
don't get technical, because freeing up money so that people can buy things and purchase homes and purchase automobiles, that's not complicated.
No,
that's pretty
but the point
standard.
is it's artificial, Steve. This is the whole point. When you inject money into the system, you depress interest rates, and therefore that sets off a speculative boom, whether it's in real estate, stocks, technology companies, which we had in the 1990s with the dot-com bust. So what the Fed does is a good intention to stimulate the economy, but it ends very badly with these
inevitably it leads in busts.
Absolutely. It leads to speculation, leads to excesses, whether it's Florida real estate, California real estate.
So right now, you're a United States Senator, and a lot of people are having trouble getting a loan to buy a house because the interest rates are going up. A lot of people are defaulting. And they want some help.
Right.
A lot of people are losing their jobs because of the recession, and people aren't buying. And you're saying, well, the best thing to do is nothing?
Well, here's the best thing to do. The lenders and the borrowers have to get together and renegotiate this. That's the simple thing to do.
Say they don't.
Well, then the bankers don't want to have all these houses on inventory.
What's the role of the government?
Excuse me?
What's the role of the government if the other folks
The role
don't
of
do
government would be to reduce taxes on people at lower tax rates, lower income rates, so they can have more money.
But stay out of the private marketplace.
Yeah, because what that's going to do is just going to exacerbate the problem. And it's going to teach people, if I get into trouble, the government's going to bail me out. That's the moral hazard problem.
Okay, Professor Sabrin, but if you're going to reduce taxes, that means that the government is going to have less money to spend on things. So what things that the government spends on now would you want them not to spend? In other words, what should the federal government cut?
I've explained this over the years. We have duplication between the federal government, state government, and local government.
Give us three big areas.
Agriculture department. We have farmers are making a lot of money now, and they're still getting subsidized. Corn's at an all-time high, wheat's at an all-time high.
What should we cut?
Cut out the agricultural department.
Well, Governor John Corzine in the state of New Jersey is proposing that we do away with the Department of Agriculture. That's a good thing?
Absolutely, because what that's going to do is free up resources from the state budget, so you don't have
a Democratic governor is doing that, and that's a good thing.
Well, because financial reality, economic reality is forcing him to do so. He doesn't want to do so because...
Well, the farmers don't like it.
Of course they don't, because they think they're getting a benefit from it. The point is, agribusiness benefits from
So
the
the federal
agricultural
government
department.
should follow Governor Corzine's, who
Absolutely.
was following what you
Give us
suggested
another
4 years ago.
Energy Department. Energy Department was in the 1970s, created by Jimmy Carter, and of course, what did he give us? So-called energy independence with the Synfuels program. That's SYN. Not, and it was a sin because it was a $2 billion.
So do away
tax
with
rate.
the Department of Energy?
Absolutely, we don't need it because you have.
What does the Department of Energy do now?
Nobody knows. I mean, what do they do? They
Well, but the
give-
Department of Agriculture does something. It gives subsidies to farmers and figures out how
and
much.
it causes higher prices for people in New
Okay,
Jersey.
but you don't even know what the Department of Energy does.
They give grants for companies to do alternative energy. Let the marketplace
Would you
decide.
do away with the Environmental Protection Agency?
No, I think we can. A lot of that could be done at the local level and state level, because again, we have duplication between state and federal. I'll give you another one: the Commerce Department. We have chambers of commerce all over the country that promote business for the local communities. Why do we need a national Commerce Department to do that?
How
Again,
much money are you talking about saving by these cuts of not particularly large agencies?
I would say if you look at the total amount of dollars, it would probably be well over $100–200 billion, because not only do they the cost of the agency themselves, all these subsidiary contracts and expenditures, you have to go through the budget
Would
line
you
by
cut the
line.
Department of Defense too?
The things that we don't need, we'd have to sit down and say what are in the strategic national interest of the American people as to what is.
You are running in the Republican primary.
Well,
right?
the point is,
Are you really Republican?
if the Republican Party stands for limited government and free enterprise, I became a Republican, Steve, in 1969 in New York City after living through the Great Society programs. And I had been reading about economics through my college career, and I said, this is not going to work. You're promising too much to the American people. The promises are greater than the economy can grow. And now here we are 40 years later, and we have this.
But you believe that the Republican Party has made the same mistakes in spending too much and cutting too much, especially over the last 8 years?
This has been the culture of Washington, D.C. It's been documented by people, academics who say once people get into Washington, they tend to spend, especially if they stay there longer and longer and longer. So this is a bipartisan problem we're facing in Washington. And so Republicans over the years, their rhetoric has been great. That's what gets them elected. Ronald Reagan in 1980, get government off our back, but even Ronald Reagan agencies he said he wanted to get rid of.